Alex Miller, a battle-worn Marine, limps through the forest, haunted by memories of his K9, Rex. It's been years since they were separated in battle. In the distance, a familiar sound cuts through the silence. Boots. Rex, thin and tired, hears it too. He stops, head cocked, his amber eyes wide with recognition. But could it really be him? Rex takes off, stumbling through the underbrush, desperate, driven by something deeper than instinct. He crashes into Alex, and for a moment, time stands still. Alex drops to his knees, tears streaming. He whispers, "You found me." But then, a low growl from the trees. What's lurking in the shadows? He wasn't supposed to survive. Those words echoed in the quiet forest, a whisper of truth Alex Miller couldn't ignore. The sound of boots, a sound that used to mean home, meant everything in that moment. The forest was still, the air thick with uncertainty, but Alex's heart raced as the echo of footsteps reached his ears. He had heard that sound 1,000 times before, but this time it was different. This time, he wasn't sure if it was a ghost or a dream. Was it really him? Was it Rex? The K9 he had left behind years ago in the heat of battle? The dog that had been more than just a partner, but a friend, a brother in arms? Alex couldn't remember the last time he'd felt a spark of hope. The wounds, both physical and emotional, ran deep. He had seen too much, lost too many, and yet, the sound of those boots brought a strange, wild hope. Somewhere, deep in the woods, Rex heard it too. His ears twitched at the sound. Something in his gut told him to move. He had waited for this moment for so long, not knowing if Alex would ever return, but he had never stopped believing. His paws dug into the dirt, pushing through the thick underbrush, the familiar sound of boots pulling him forward. Every step felt like a lifetime. Every second a promise that maybe, just maybe, he would find the one person who never gave up on him. As Rex ran, his heart pounded with every footstep he heard, the weight of the years apart making his limbs feel heavier. But the closer he got, the more certain he became. The Marine. It had to be him. He recognized. The sound of his boots, the one constant in his life, the sound that had always meant safety. Rex's breath came in sharp bursts as he pushed through the underbrush, the trees blurring around him. His paws moved faster, pushing him forward as if driven by some force greater than instinct. The sound of boots grew louder, closer, and just as Rex rounded the corner, he saw him. There, standing in the clearing, was Alex. His heart skipped a beat as their eyes met. Time stopped for a moment. Alex knelt, his face a mix of disbelief and joy, as Rex lunged forward, crashing into him. The force of the impact knocked them both to the ground, but neither cared. For the first time in years, they were together again. Alex's hands shook as he stroked Rex's fur, feeling the warmth of the dog he thought he had lost forever. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he couldn't speak. His voice was lost in the overwhelming feeling of finally being whole again. Rex, too, nuzzled Alex, his tail wagging furiously. The two of them finally reunited after all this time. But as they embraced, something in the distance caught Rex's attention. A movement, a shadow in the trees. Rex's ears perked up, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Something wasn't right. But Alex was too lost in the moment to notice what was lurking just beyond the trees. The forest had always been full of surprises, but this was something else. Alex's heart raced as he held Rex, his hands trembling with emotion. After so many years of searching, it felt like a dream to have his loyal K9 back by his side. Rex's tail wagged furiously, his body shaking with excitement, as if he too couldn't believe what had just happened. For a moment, the two of them lay there in the clearing, lost in the reunion. But the peaceful moment was broken when Rex suddenly lifted his head, his ears twitching at a sound in the distance. A growl rumbled deep in his throat. Alex froze, instinctively sensing that something wasn't right. He slowly turned his head toward the woods, his eyes scanning the darkening trees. "What is it, boy?" Alex whispered, his voice low and cautious. Rex's gaze was fixed on the shadows, his muscles tense. The forest around them had always been full of surprises, but this felt different. It wasn't the usual rustle of animals or the wind through the trees. Something was lurking just beyond their reach, something they couldn't yet see but could feel closing in. Alex stood up, his hand still resting on Rex's back. "Stay close," he muttered, unsure of what was coming next but trusting Rex's instincts. He had learned long ago that Rex could sense danger before anyone else. They had been through so much together, and in that moment, Alex knew they needed each other more than ever. The growl from Rex grew louder, a warning. Alex tightened his grip on Rex's collar, his heart pounding. "It's okay, boy," he whispered, though his own voice shook. They waited in silence. The only sounds the wind moving through the branches and the distant calls of night creatures. The shadows in the trees shifted, and Alex's breath caught in his throat. Rex's growl intensified, but before Alex could react, something moved from the trees. A figure, tall and dark, stepped into the clearing. Alex's pulse quickened, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife at his belt. But then, to his surprise, Rex stepped forward, his posture relaxed but still alert. The figure wasn't threatening. It was a man, dressed in military fatigues, his face weathered but kind. "You found him," the man said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. Alex looked at him, confused. "Who are you?" he asked, still not fully understanding what was happening. The man smiled gently, his eyes locking onto Rex. "I'm the one who trained him before he was yours," he explained. "I knew he was still out here. I've been watching over him." Alex's mind raced. It had been years since Rex was first trained. The bond between them was strong, but hearing that someone else had been looking after Rex, keeping him safe, filled him with a strange sense of relief. Rex walked over to the man, nudging his hand with his nose. The man knelt down, giving Rex a scratch behind the ears. "You're one tough dog," the man said softly. "I never gave up on you." Alex stood there, watching the exchange, still processing the whirlwind of emotions. Rex had not only survived on his own, but had been cared for by someone else who understood the bond they shared. It was a comforting thought, but it also left him wondering what else Rex had been through during their time apart. As Alex stepped closer, the man stood up and nodded toward the woods. "There's something I need to show you," he said, his tone serious. Alex's instincts kicked in again. Whatever was out there, it was more than just a reunion. There was something bigger happening, and Rex knew it. Alex followed the man, with Rex by his side, the three of them stepping into the shadows of the trees, unaware of the secrets that were about to unfold. Alex followed the man through the dense forest, Rex by his side, his tail low but his senses sharp. The air felt different now, heavier with anticipation, the woods darker than before, as if holding its breath. Alex's boots crunched softly on the underbrush, the sound of his footsteps mingling with the distant calls of birds. Rex moved quietly, his body tense, but his eyes never left the figure ahead of them. The man led them deeper into the forest, moving with a sense of purpose that Alex couldn't yet understand. They came to a small clearing, a place Alex had never seen before. It was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made every movement feel more pronounced. The man stopped and turned to face Alex. "This is where I've been watching over him," the man said quietly, his eyes scanning the trees around them. Rex was never alone, even after he was separated from you. Alex stood still, taking in the surroundings. The trees were thick, their branches heavy with moss, casting long shadows across the ground. A faint smell of earth and pine filled the air. Rex sniffed the ground, his nose twitching as he moved forward. Alex's mind was racing. He didn't know what to make of the man's words. Rex had been alone for so long, hadn't he? Had someone been watching him all this time? He glanced down at Rex, who was now standing tall, his ears alert. The dog seemed to be listening for something in the distance. Alex followed Rex's gaze and noticed something in the trees. A shape, barely visible in the dim light. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. "What is that?" Alex asked, his voice tense. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked towards the shape, motioning for Alex to follow. They approached slowly, Rex moving ahead, his steps quiet but purposeful. The closer they got, the more the shape took form. It was a small wooden cabin, tucked away in the trees, its walls weathered and worn. A sense of unease settled in Alex's chest. Why had they come here? The man stopped at the door, looking back at Alex. "This is where it all started," he said, his voice low. Alex took a step forward, his hand instinctively reaching for Rex's collar. Rex stood still, his eyes fixed on the door, his body tense as if sensing something was off. The man opened the door slowly, and a creaking sound echoed in the quiet forest. Inside, it was dim, the only light coming from a small crack in the ceiling where the sun peeked through. As Alex stepped inside, his eyes adjusted to the darkness. The air smelled musty, stale, as if the cabin had been abandoned for years. But there, in the corner of the room, Alex saw something that made his heart stop. A collection of old, worn military equipment, some of it covered in dust, others in disarray. And there, sitting in the middle of it all, was a small wooden crate. The man walked over to it and lifted the lid. Inside, Alex could barely make out a small, folded piece of paper. The man handed it to him without saying a word. Alex unfolded it slowly, his eyes scanning the faded writing. It was a note, written in a hurried hand. Rex is more than just a dog. He's part of something bigger. Alex's heart raced as he stared at the words, a feeling of dread creeping over him. What did this mean? What had Rex been a part of all this time? Rex, sensing his confusion, moved closer, his head resting against Alex's leg. The bond between them was undeniable. But now, there were more questions than answers. The man stepped back, his face unreadable. There's more to Rex's story than you know, he said softly. And it's time for you to understand it. Alex's hands shook as he held the note, his mind struggling to comprehend the words. Rex is more than just a dog. He's part of something bigger. The message felt cryptic, unsettling. What could it mean? Rex, standing by his side, let out a low whine, as if sensing Alex's confusion. The air inside the cabin felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. The man stood in the corner, watching Alex closely, waiting for him to process the revelation. What is this about? Alex asked, his voice low and filled with both fear and curiosity. The man looked at him for a long moment, then stepped forward, taking a deep breath. Rex wasn't just trained for search and rescue, or for combat, he said, his voice steady but carrying a weight of truth. He was part of an operation, something much larger than either of you knew. When you were deployed, Rex was part of a special team, one that worked alongside military units for more than just missions. There were things, classified things, that he was involved in. Alex's mind raced, his heart pounding in his chest. Rex had been part of something bigger, something Alex hadn't known about. Could this be why Rex had always been so alert, so capable of sensing danger? He had assumed Rex's extraordinary abilities were just the result of good training, but now it seemed there was much more to it. What kind of operation? Alex asked, his voice barely a whisper. The man's eyes darkened, and he glanced around the cabin as if checking for anyone who might be listening. It's not something that can be explained in a few words, he said slowly. Rex was part of an elite program, one that worked with soldiers in ways that no one could fully understand. He was trained for situations that most people can't even imagine. But the truth is, he's not just a soldier. He's a survivor, just like you. The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was part of something far more complex, far more dangerous than Alex had ever known. The loyalty Rex had shown, the bond they shared, now seemed even more significant. Why are you telling me this now? Alex asked, his voice filled with disbelief. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned and walked over to a small table in the corner of the cabin, pulling out a dusty file from a drawer. He placed it on the table in front of Alex. This is what you need to know, he said quietly. You and Rex are connected by more than just a bond. There are things about his past, about the people he's worked with, that you need to understand, because it's all going to catch up with you soon. Alex stared at the file, his heart racing. He had come here to find Rex, to bring his dog home, but now everything had changed. Rex's past was now a part of his own future, and Alex had no idea what kind of danger lay ahead. But one thing was certain. Rex had been waiting for this moment, waiting for Alex to come back, and together, they would have to face whatever was coming next. Rex, sensing the tension in the air, moved closer to Alex, his presence a silent reassurance. Alex reached down and stroked his dog's fur, the familiar warmth grounding him in the uncertainty of the moment. We'll figure this out, boy, Alex whispered. Together, Alex stared at the file in his hands, the weight of it almost too much to bear. The man who had been guiding him through this strange journey stood silently nearby, watching him closely. Rex, ever watchful, sat by Alex's side, his eyes scanning the room, his senses never resting. The quiet of the cabin felt like a pressure, the air thick with the unspoken tension between them. Alex slowly opened the file, the paper crackling in his hands. Inside, there were a series of documents, photographs, and what looked like classified reports. He couldn't make sense of all of it, but one thing was clear. Rex had been involved in something far bigger than Alex could ever imagine. The first document he looked at was a report on Rex's training, detailing missions and operations that sounded more like something out of a movie than real life. Alex's mind struggled to comprehend it. He had always known Rex was special, but this was something else entirely. The words blurred together as he tried to process the truth. Rex had been part of an elite program, trained not just for detection, but for high-risk operations that were classified. It was like a part of Rex's life had been kept in the shadows, and now Alex was stepping into that darkness. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the decision he was facing. The man spoke again, his voice steady, though Alex could hear the gravity in it. "You need to understand, Alex. Rex was never just a dog. He was a part of a team that worked in ways that most people can't even imagine. There are people who want him back. People who will stop at nothing to get him." Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He had always known Rex had an uncanny ability to sense danger, to protect him in ways no one else could. But now it seemed like that very gift had made Rex a target. "Who are these people?" Alex asked, his voice tight. The man paused before answering, his gaze steady on Alex. "I don't know all the details, but I do know that they have been watching Rex, and they've been watching you too. You can't go back to your old life. Not now." Alex's mind raced. He had thought coming back to find Rex would be the end of his journey, but now it felt like it was only just beginning. There was a much bigger story here, one that neither he nor Rex had been prepared for. The man's voice cut through his thoughts. "You and Rex are in this together. There's no turning back now." Alex looked down at Rex, whose amber eyes met his with an almost knowing gaze. The bond between them had always been unbreakable, but now, it felt like they were standing on the edge of something even bigger than either of them could understand. "We'll figure it out," Alex said quietly, more to himself than to the man. Rex nuzzled his hand, a reassuring presence. But deep down, Alex knew that the road ahead was going to be far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. He looked at the file again, his heart heavy with the weight of the truth. Whatever was coming, he and Rex would face it together. But there were still so many unanswered questions, and Alex couldn't help but feel that their past was about to catch up with them in ways he could never have predicted. The cabin felt colder now, the silence pressing in on Alex and Rex as they processed everything they had learned. The file lay open on the table, its contents still swirling in Alex's mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something far bigger than either of them had anticipated. The man, still standing across from them, seemed to be waiting for Alex to come to terms with the weight of the situation. But Alex couldn't focus on the details in the file just yet. His thoughts kept circling back to Rex, his loyal companion, the dog who had been through so much, and now was tied to something he didn't fully understand. Rex, ever watchful, stood by Alex's side, his ears perked up as he sniffed the air. Alex couldn't help but reach down to stroke his fur, finding some comfort in the dog's steady presence. There was a bond between them, unspoken yet undeniable, and it was this bond that had kept them alive through so many battles, both on the field and in life. The man finally broke the silence. "You'll need to be careful, Alex. They'll be looking for you. And they'll be looking for Rex, too." Alex glanced up at the man, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean, looking for us? Who are they?" The man's expression hardened as he stepped closer. "They're people from the program Rex was a part of. They're not interested in just letting him go. They'll do whatever it takes to get him back." Alex's heart raced at the thought. He had never imagined that Rex's training would lead them to this, being hunted down by forces that wanted something more than just a loyal K9. "What happens now?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. The man paused for a moment, his gaze shifting to Rex. "Now you get ready. Because once they're after you, there's no turning back. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want." The words hit Alex like a cold slap. They had been trying to live a simple life, just the two of them, but now it seemed their past was going to catch up with them in ways they couldn't control. Rex's low growl brought Alex's attention back to the present. The dog was on alert again, his body tense as he looked toward the door. Alex followed his gaze, but there was nothing in sight. The forest outside remained quiet, but Rex knew something was wrong. "We have to move," Alex said quickly, his instincts kicking in. He could feel the tension building, like the calm before a storm. The man nodded, his expression grim. "You're right. Get your things, and make sure Rex is ready. We'll help you as much as we can, but after that, it's up to you to keep moving." Alex turned to gather what little he had, his thoughts racing. They were about to be thrust into something much bigger than either of them had ever imagined, and he wasn't sure how they were going to get through it. But one thing was certain. He wouldn't leave Rex behind. Together, they had survived too much to be torn apart now. Rex, sensing Alex's determination, nudged his hand, offering a quiet reassurance. The bond between them was all they had, and it was stronger than any enemy they could face. Alex finished gathering his things, and with one last look at the man, he stepped toward the door. "Let's go, Rex," he said, his voice firm. "We've got a lot of ground to cover." The two of them stepped into the cold night, the forest around them filled with an unsettling silence. But Alex knew one thing for sure. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. The forest seemed to close in around them as Alex and Rex moved swiftly through the underbrush. The night was thick with tension, the only sounds the crunch of leaves beneath their boots and Rex's steady breathing. Alex's mind raced, thinking of the warning the man had given them. The people looking for Rex, who were they? What were they really after? And why did Rex matter so much? Questions swirled, but Alex pushed them aside for the moment. His priority was keeping Rex safe, getting them as far away from the cabin as possible. He knew they couldn't stay there. Not now. The man's words echoed in his mind. "Once they're after you, there's no turning back." Alex looked down at Rex, his loyal companion, the only constant in a world that seemed to be falling apart. Rex was alert, his ears pricked, his eyes scanning the dark woods ahead. Despite the uncertainty, Alex found some comfort in the dog's presence. They had been through too much together, and Alex knew that as long as Rex was with him, they had a fighting chance. But the weight of the situation was starting to sink in. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was part of something Alex couldn't even begin to understand. And now, both of them were in danger because of it. They pushed on through the night, moving deeper into the forest. Alex didn't know where they were going, only that they had to keep moving. The sound of their footsteps seemed louder in the quiet of the woods, each step feeling like it could lead them straight into the unknown. Every shadow, every rustle in the trees, felt like it was something more, something watching them. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. He glanced over at Rex, whose posture was rigid, his tail still. The dog's senses were sharper than Alex's, and if Rex was on edge, Alex knew they were in danger. "Stay close, boy," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible over the sounds of the forest. Rex gave a soft whine, but he stayed by Alex's side, his eyes never leaving the darkened woods around them. They walked for what felt like hours, the trees growing denser as they moved further into the forest. It felt as though they had been walking forever, but the horizon remained dark, no sign of dawn yet. Alex's legs were sore, his muscles aching from the constant movement, but he didn't stop. He couldn't afford to. The further they went, the more Alex began to feel the weight of the situation. They were no longer just running from danger, they were now a part of it. And that terrified him. Rex had been trained for things Alex couldn't even imagine. But even with all his training, Alex knew that this new enemy was something neither of them could fully prepare for. What had they gotten themselves into? "We'll figure this out," Alex muttered to himself, though the words felt empty in the vast, silent woods. Rex, as if hearing his thoughts, glanced up at him, his amber eyes full of trust. No matter what came next, they would face it together. But just as Alex was about to push forward, Rex stopped. The dog's body went tense, his ears flicking back as he stared into the trees ahead. Alex felt a cold chill run down his spine. He knew that look. Something was out there. Something was waiting for them. Alex stopped in his tracks, heart pounding in his chest as Rex remained perfectly still. The dog's amber eyes were locked on something ahead, his posture rigid, muscles tensed like a coiled spring ready to snap. Alex followed Rex's gaze, but the woods ahead seemed empty, nothing but darkness and shadows. Yet, Alex knew better. Rex's instincts were never wrong. Something was there, watching them. The silence was deafening, the kind of stillness that made every breath feel too loud. The faint rustling of leaves, the sound of a branch snapping somewhere far off. These were the only signs of life in the vast forest. But even those noises felt like a warning. Alex instinctively reached for the small knife at his belt, his fingers brushing the cool metal, his grip tightening as his senses heightened. The faintest sound broke the quiet, footsteps, soft and deliberate. Not theirs. Someone else was out there, moving cautiously, trying not to be heard. Rex's growl was barely a whisper, but Alex could feel it vibrating through his bones. "Stay close, Rex," Alex whispered, though the words felt like they would be swallowed by the forest. His eyes darted around, trying to spot any movement, any sign of what was out there. But all he saw was the dark expanse of trees, the shadows stretching like tendrils waiting to consume them. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and then, without warning, a figure stepped out from the darkness. Alex's heart skipped a beat. The figure was tall, cloaked in black, with a face obscured by the shadows. The only thing Alex could see clearly were the dark, intense eyes staring directly at him. The figure didn't speak at first, just stood there, watching. Rex's growl deepened, the hair on his back standing on end. "Who are you?" Alex demanded, his voice steady despite the fear creeping up his spine. The figure's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "You're not safe here," the man said, his voice low and calm, but with an edge that sent a chill down Alex's spine. "Neither of you are." Alex's hand instinctively tightened on the knife's handle. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice more forceful now. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Alex. "You've been running for too long," the man said, his voice almost pitying. "You can't outrun your past. You can't outrun what's coming." Alex's heart thudded in his chest. The man knew about their past. He knew about Rex. But how? "I'm not running," Alex said, his voice colder now. "I'm protecting what's mine." The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering Alex's words. Then, in one swift motion, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small object. Alex's eyes locked onto it, an old, faded photo. The man held it out toward him, the image worn and creased. It was a picture of Rex, standing beside a group of soldiers, his eyes alert, his body tense, ready for action. But it wasn't just the dog in the picture that made Alex's stomach drop. It was the man standing next to him, a familiar face. It was Alex. "You're not the only one with a past," the man said softly, his voice now tinged with something darker. "And I'm here to make sure it catches up with you." Alex stared at the photo in the man's hand, the image of Rex in military gear, his posture proud and alert. But it wasn't just the dog in the picture that made Alex's heart race. It was the man standing beside him. The same man who now stood before him, the man who knew too much. Alex's grip on the knife tightened, the weight of his past crashing down on him. The man's face was older, weathered, but Alex recognized him immediately. It was from a time he had tried to forget, a time when he had been a part of something far more dangerous than he ever imagined. "How do you have this?" Alex asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and anger. The man didn't flinch. "You really think you can escape it? You think running away from this life will keep you safe?" Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He hadn't been running. He had been trying to survive, to protect the one thing that mattered to him. But now, standing here, facing a man from his past, it felt like everything was slipping away. "I don't know what you want," Alex said, trying to steady his breath. "But I'm not going back to that life. Not now. Not after everything we've been through." The man's lips curled into a slight smile. "It's not up to you, Alex. It never was." He stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Alex. Rex growled low, his body tense, as if sensing the shift in the air. Alex could feel the dog's unease, but he kept his focus on the man in front of him. "You don't get it, do you?" The man continued, his voice calm but cutting. "This life, it never leaves you. Not completely. Not when you're part of something like this." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "You and Rex, your bond, wasn't just some accident. It was built. It was planned." Alex's head spun. The man's words felt like a slap to the face, each one chipping away at the fragile sense of control Alex had managed to hold on to. He had always known that Rex was special, that their bond ran deeper than just soldier and K9. But now, hearing these words, it felt like the truth was slipping through his fingers, like he had been living in a lie all this time. "What are you saying?" Alex demanded, his voice shaking. The man's eyes darkened. I'm saying that you can't outrun your past, no matter how hard you try. There are people out there who want Rex back. They don't care about your bond. They don't care about your loyalty. They care about control. Alex's stomach churned. You don't get it, he said, taking a step back. I'm not going anywhere. And neither is Rex. Rex's growl deepened, a low rumble that vibrated through the ground beneath them. The man's smile faded. You think you have a choice? You think you can just walk away from this? It's not that simple, Alex. They've been watching you. They know where you are. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Who? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Who's been watching us? The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned and started to walk back into the shadows. You'll find out soon enough, he said over his shoulder. But by then, it might be too late. Alex stood there, frozen, his mind reeling from the man's words. Rex stayed close, his body still tense, his eyes scanning the trees around them. The air was thick with the tension of the unknown. Alex felt it too. Something was coming, something he wasn't prepared for. Rex nudged his hand, pulling Alex from his thoughts. We need to go, Alex whispered, knowing that staying here was no longer an option. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. But for the first time, Alex wasn't sure if they were ready. Alex didn't waste a second. Without looking back, he motioned for Rex to follow as. He turned toward the dense forest, his heart racing with every step. The man's words still echoed in his mind. Asterisk, they've been watching you. They know where you are. Asterisk, the weight of those words settled heavily on his chest. He had thought the worst was behind him. He had thought finding Rex, getting his dog back, would be the end of their nightmare. But it wasn't. It was just the beginning. The man had been right. There was no escaping their past. Alex moved quickly, his mind focused only on the path ahead, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Rex trotted beside him, his senses alert, his body tense. The bond between them was unspoken but undeniable. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Alex glanced over at Rex, feeling a surge of protectiveness. He had always known Rex was special, but now he realized just how much his dog had been through. Rex had been more than just a partner. He had been through the darkness with Alex, had been there in the toughest moments of his life. And now, it seemed that darkness was coming for them both. Stay close, boy, Alex muttered, though he knew Rex didn't need the reminder. Rex was already on alert, his eyes darting back and forth as they moved through the thick underbrush. They kept their pace steady, the only sounds being their footsteps and the distant rustling of leaves. But there was a heavy silence in the air, the kind that made every sound feel magnified. Alex's grip tightened on the knife at his belt. He didn't know what they were running from, but he had learned long ago that instincts were often more reliable than answers. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, the trees growing denser with each step. The night had fully settled, and the only light came from the sliver of moon above, casting faint shadows across the ground. The air was cool, the scent of damp earth filling his nostrils, but Alex barely noticed it. His mind was consumed with the thought of what lay ahead. Who were the people after Rex? What did they want with him? And why had Rex been so important to them? As the minutes passed, Alex started to feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him. He had always prided himself on being in control, on having a plan. But now he was out of his depth. They weren't just running anymore. They were being hunted. And this time, there was no escape. He looked down at Rex, who was moving in sync with him, his eyes trained ahead, alert but calm. The dog trusted him. But did Alex trust himself? They had come so far, survived so much. But this felt different. Rex let out a soft whine, and Alex stopped, holding up a hand to signal for him to wait. The air was thick, and Alex's instincts screamed that they weren't alone. He squatted down next to Rex, his senses on high alert. There was something in the distance, a faint sound, too far off to make out. But Rex's ears were perked, and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end. "What is it, boy?" Alex whispered, but Rex didn't answer. Instead, he started moving forward, his body low to the ground, as if drawn by something Alex couldn't see. Alex followed, his heart pounding, unsure of what to expect. The deeper they went, the more the world seemed to close in around them. Then, without warning, the sound of footsteps behind them froze Alex in his tracks. Someone, or something, was following them. Alex's breath caught in his throat as he turned to Rex, who had already gone silent, his body tense. They weren't alone anymore. And this time, Alex wasn't sure if they were ready for what was about to come. The sound of footsteps behind them grew louder, the crunch of leaves and twigs unmistakable in the stillness of the forest. Alex's heart pounded as he froze, his body tense, every muscle primed for action. Rex, ever the sentinel, stood by his side, his eyes fixed on the trees behind them, ears perked. Alex held his breath, trying to listen for any clue, any sound that would tell him who or what was following them. The forest seemed alive with noise, chirping insects, rustling leaves, but none of it felt as sharp or immediate as the sound of those footsteps. Alex's mind raced. Was it the man from the cabin? Had he followed them? Or was it something else entirely? Rex's body tensed, his posture low, his growl barely audible but unmistakable. Something was closing in, and Alex didn't know what it was, but he knew they couldn't. Stay here. The forest had never felt so vast and isolating. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the night air felt colder, pressing in from every direction. Alex took a slow, steady breath, his hand instinctively moving to the knife at his belt, though he knew it wouldn't be enough if they were about to face whatever was following them. Stay close, Rex, Alex whispered, though the words barely broke the silence. Rex didn't need the command. The dog had always been in tune with his instincts, and now, as they stood in the darkness, both of them felt the weight of the moment. The footsteps behind them stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of their own breathing, the rustle of the trees, the wind through the branches. Then, suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the dim light of the moon. It was another man, taller than the first, his face obscured by a hood, and his movements deliberate, calculated. He wasn't in a hurry. He didn't need to be. Alex's grip on his knife tightened, but he didn't make a move. Rex was already watching the man, his growl low and steady, his muscles coiled, ready to spring at a moment's notice. "Who are you?" Alex asked, his voice steady, though inside, his heart was hammering. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, his gaze never leaving Alex. The way he moved, the way he carried himself, made Alex's skin crawl. There was something dangerous about him. Calm, but dangerous. "We've been waiting for you," the man finally said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. "For both of you." Alex's stomach dropped. Waiting? He couldn't understand. Who were these people, and why had they been tracking them? "What do you want?" Alex demanded, stepping forward, but Rex moved with him, positioning himself protectively between Alex and the man. The stranger didn't seem to mind. In fact, he seemed almost amused. "You don't have a choice in this, Alex," the man said. "You're involved now, whether you like it or not." The words hit Alex like a blow, a sickening realization settling in. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about Rex. It was about him too. The man took another step forward, and Alex instinctively stepped back, his mind racing. "What are you talking about?" Alex asked, his voice tense. The man's eyes glinted in the moonlight. "You'll understand soon enough," he said softly. "But for now, you need to keep moving. They're closer than you think." Before Alex could respond, the man turned and walked back into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. The footsteps behind them faded, but Alex knew that this wasn't over. It had only just begun. Rex nudged his hand, and Alex glanced down at the dog, who was still alert, his eyes watching the darkness. They had been given a warning, but Alex knew the real danger was still out there. He had to move. They both did. Together, they stepped into the night, uncertainty and fear creeping over them, but the bond they shared, stronger than ever, was the one thing Alex knew he could rely on. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, but Alex kept moving forward. Whatever was coming, they would face it. Together, Alex and Rex moved through the forest at a quick pace, their breath shallow and fast, the adrenaline coursing through their veins. The encounter with the mysterious man weighed heavily on Alex's mind. Asterisk, "We've been waiting for you, for both of you." Asterisk, the words repeated in his head. Who were these people? What did they want? Alex didn't have answers, but he knew one thing for sure. They couldn't stop moving. The forest felt endless, the trees towering overhead like silent witnesses to the growing tension between them and the unseen threat that followed. Rex walked beside him, his steps sure and steady, his head constantly scanning the surroundings. Despite the unease in the air, Rex was unshaken, his loyalty unwavering. Alex reached down and patted him on the side, offering a quiet reassurance that he didn't entirely feel himself. As they pushed through the dense underbrush, Alex thought back to the file he had seen in the cabin, the one that revealed Rex's involvement in a program much bigger than him. It made sense now. Everything about Rex's training, his instinctive ability to detect danger, had all been part of something larger. But what? Alex's mind spun with unanswered questions. The man in the woods had said they were part of something. Asterisk, you're involved now, whether you like it or not. Asterisk, the cold weight of those words settled in his chest. The deeper they ventured into the forest, the more Alex felt like they were being herded into a corner. The thought of turning back crossed his mind, but it was quickly pushed aside. There was no going back. Not now. Alex knew they were being watched. He could feel eyes on them, even though there was no sign of movement. Rex had sensed it first, and now Alex was starting to feel the same oppressive presence that seemed to press in from all sides. They weren't alone, not anymore. The sound of a branch snapping in the distance made Alex stop in his tracks. Rex did the same, his ears twitching toward the noise. They stood still for several long seconds, waiting. The tension was thick, and Alex could almost hear the pounding of his own heart. Nothing moved. No sound followed. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were surrounded, that the shadows were closing in. Stay close, Alex muttered, more to himself than to Rex. The dog, sensing his unease, nudged his hand with his nose. Alex looked down at Rex, the familiar warmth of the dog's presence grounding him. They were in this together. He couldn't let fear take hold. Not now. He took a slow, steady breath, trying to shake off the feeling of being trapped. They had been through worse. But this was different. They weren't just running from danger, they were being hunted. Alex tightened his grip on the knife at his side, knowing it wouldn't be enough if they were truly surrounded. But it was all he had. Another snap of a twig in the distance, this time closer. Rex's growl vibrated through Alex's body. The dog was on high alert now, and Alex could see the tension in his muscles, the readiness to spring into action. Then, just as quickly as the sound had come, it faded into the night. They were still being followed, Alex was sure of it. But by who? He couldn't afford to wait much longer. We need to move, Alex whispered, already setting off again, his pace quicker now. Rex followed right behind him, the two of them moving through the forest as if they had become one, their survival instincts aligned. The woods felt endless, the path in front of them uncertain, but Alex didn't care. He had come too far to turn back. They were not only fighting for their lives now, they were fighting to uncover the truth about their past, about the people who were hunting them, and about Rex's true role in all of it. As they moved deeper into the woods, the only thing Alex knew for sure was that he and Rex would face whatever came next, together,